It's almost become endemic of the West in the last few decades that we try to shut the gate after the horse has already bolted, and that's the situation here. Unfortunately,
there's no doubt about that, and I think the reality that we have to, and the language to start talking people about thugs and bullies, and that in relation to China. I mean, the West no longer, it's got to face up to the fact you've got people like Joe Biden running the show. The West is no longer in charge. The post-war era is over, and there are many things we took for granted. I mean, you can criticize Putin for all you like, but Putin's been there forever, so he now obviously believes, having been there forever, that he's bulletproof, and he sees the West is weak under the leadership of Putin, and as a result, he thinks, well, look, Ukraine, here are the West trying to shore up Ukraine into a democratic society. I don't want a democratic society of Ukraine living on our borders, because the people over the border in Russia, in my country, are going to say, well, hang on, if Ukraine can have this, why can't we have it? So we're going to have to shut down Ukraine. And it's quite clear that the resources available to the West to stop that onslaught don't exist. Now, whether he's going to go the full Monty and overtake the whole of Ukraine is another question, but it leaves us with this business about China. I mean, if I went out on the public place and said, oh, that bloke that does breakfast on 2CCC down there in Canberra, I mean, he's a thug and a pig and a bully, and he's a liar and a cheat, would Stephen speak to me? So here we are with a major trading partner, China, and we're going on about bullying and intimidation and all the rest of it, and they won't even pick up the phone to us. So where do we go with all of this? I mean, okay, it is absolutely right that Australia was right to call out the targeting of our Defence Force surveillance aircraft by Chinese Navy ship. That's true, and China had an answer to all of that. But somehow or other, we've got to resolve this impasse. I mean, Greg Sheridan, who is the most authoritative writer on this stuff in Australia, he wouldn't be listened to by anyone in Canberra, but he wrote recently, and I quote, instead of a screaming and shouting response, it should lead to this utterly shocking recognition. Australia does not have the military capability to dominate and secure its own territorial waters. Forget about defending Taiwan. We can't defend our own maritime approaches. He says authoritarian dictators are on the march militarily and politically, and the scandalous truth is that for all the billions of dollars we've committed to defence, we've done almost nothing to increase our ability to defend ourselves, much less to strike an enemy or keep one at bay. He said instead of screaming at China, the government should set about acquiring relevant defence capabilities straight away. I mean, that's where we are. So here we are now. If the West mobilises in relation to Putin and leaves China to please itself down here, God knows where we fit into all of this. So what's going to happen over there is interesting. I think, as I said, Stephen, someone's going to have to advise Biden and Boris Johnson and others that the resources available to Russia in terms of sanctions against us are far greater than any sanctions we can impose on them. The whole of Europe is dependent on Russian gas, for God's sake. I mean, what's going to happen if Russia then turns off the gas supplies to Europe? So we're in a quandary. The old post-war era where the West was in charge no longer prevails, and someone's got to start talking to these people.
And it's what happens when you don't learn from history. Alan, great to talk to you. We'll catch up next week.
You too, Stephen. Thank you, my friend.